Have you ever wondered what a John Wick movie would look like if it had a tenth of the budget and a fifth of the energy? Well, your answer may be in this movie, Repeater. This is a 2022 low-budget movie that stars Paul Sidhu as our main character called John Smith, although I have to say he kind of reminds me more of an Indian Jon Snow, if I'm honest. And this one has a couple of recognisable names. Gary Daniels as a kind of a rival hitman, Kristanna Loken as a kind of another kind of operator. We've got a couple of other familiar faces here, including Corbin Bernsen. And the story is about the character of John Smith, who is a kind of assassin for hire, and he is sent to effectively go after this particular kind of target who has stolen some type of computer files. And there's various other operators, both professional and more kind of local, that are trying to kind of, you know, obtain the same mark as you'd expect. And a lot of these kind of like assassins know each other. Inevitably, John Smith, our main character, kind of has a change of heart and ends up trying to protect this target against the kind of the other forces. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So let's talk about what I think works in this film. It is very clearly influenced by the John Wick movies. You know, our character is somewhat kind of styled after him. We have a bunch of kind of assassins, all who know each other. We have an assassin bar. You know, all of the assassins are kind of dressed to the kind of in suits and all this kind of thing. Lots of kind of stylized kind of action sequences. So if you like John Wick, but you're a fan of the B movie, you may want to check this one out. I actually didn't think it was a bad film, if I'm honest. I think it's a reasonably kind of put together low budget action film. I don't think it ever really stands out in any particular way, but I think it's an okay sort of kind of like premise, albeit it does borrow very kind of liberally with let's say, the aforementioned John Wick franchise. I kind of like Gary Daniels in this role. He actually plays kind of like the main rival hitman, who is pretty ruthless, and you know, he doesn't have, you know, he's kind of not the main sort of character here, so to speak, but I think he's portrayed to be legitimately quite dangerous, legitimately quite kind of ruthless, and I kind of like the fact that he has a lot of kind of London kind of slang words in his kind of in his repertoire. You know, so I actually kind of found his character not funny exactly, but I kind of quite like the way he sort of speaks with people, and you know, he uses a lot of like I say, colloquialisms from the UK, which for me, being from the UK, I kind of liked, I have to say. There are a couple of other kind of not bad sort of shot sequences, I have to say, in regards to kind of like shootouts and things like that. They're a little bit on the kind of like not exactly adrenaline fueled, but I think they're okay. I mean, they're not badly shot. And there's a couple of, you know, I have to say, on a technical level, I think the movie's actually relatively kind of well put together. You know, there's a few sequences here that I think, you know, that are kind of external sort of shots and things like that, on location shoots. I gotta say, I thought the actual cinematography and stuff like that were all done not too bad, to be honest. I mean, there are some sequences here that I thought, oh, you know, that probably could have been done on a green screen, but they've actually shot on location, so it gives it a little bit more of a kind of a you know, realistic feel to a certain degree. I actually quite liked some of the kind of the moments in the movie. We have our main character, John Smith, actually has a little bit of a romance with a prostitute. And I mean, it's the typical kind of tart with a heart sort of situation that you had here. But I kind of thought it was an interesting choice, because obviously both these people effectively, you know, have somewhat kind of dark side jobs, you might say. And I actually thought that was, you know, it kind of makes sense. I kind of quite liked it. And some of the stuff that worked in John Wick does work in this movie. The camaraderie and the kind of like the repertoire between the kind of the assassins. Again, it is something that admittedly is taken from another movie franchise, but I still kind of quite liked it, to be honest. I thought that was all okay, and I thought, you know, it gave for context within the movie that they don't specifically say, like they've all had some type of past with one another. I mean, you've really got three main assassins, all of whom are working somewhat against each other, plus a kind of bunch of kind of like goons and stuff. But I thought it was reasonable, reasonably done, to be honest. And we have like a guy who helps the John Smith character, and I thought, oh, he's like the comedy relief, but he's taken out in quite kind of brutal fashion. So I think for a kind of low budget action film, it's not bad. It's kind of a watchable film. It's nothing you haven't seen before, but I thought it was an okay kind of watch. Let's talk about what I think does not work. Paul Sidhu, who is our main lead actor here, who plays the role of John Smith, I have to say, he's not exactly brimming with charisma. Let me just kind of say that. I found his character both underwritten and sort of like, I don't know, he didn't really have much charisma or persona. So he very much feels like a blank slate. The way he's written, for example, let's just go there first of all. Like we see that at one point he's said to get this target, the person that they're all after. Yeah, he sees the guy's got like a wedding ring on and kind of has a change of heart and sort of spares him. And I thought, well, as an assassin, surely you must come across like married people all the time. It's a little bit sort of, I mean, it's obviously meant to remind him of his wife. But I just thought, come on, I mean, that's like, it's not enough. It's not enough for this guy to kind of like have this kind of change of heart, I didn't think. There wasn't enough there for me to do that. I mean, surely if you're a professional assassin and you've been doing this for, years and years, you would come across plenty of kind of married people in your time. Why is it this one that sort of makes you kind of like side with the mark, so to speak? It didn't really make sense to me, especially when the actual whole point of the title repeater is this guy says at the beginning it's kind of like find, kill and repeat or something like that, and it's like, so you've obviously do this quite a lot. Why is it this one? Never really kind of given any other context other than that, because that's the story that they want to tell. But in the kind of this universe, to me there wasn't really enough context in that. Again, it's just trying to borrow a little bit too liberally from the kind of the dead wife angle that was in the kind of the John Wick movies and stuff like that. So it didn't really earn it in this particular kind of film, if you ask me. And then as far as the acting is concerned, I think they're trying to kind of make this John Smith character a little bit of an enigma. And again, I think they're trying to copy a little bit from the John Wick franchise. But I just don't think there's enough built into his character, and then the actor just kind of plays him like this sort of like, guy who is, he gives fruit to homeless people. He's like this good guy, and it's just a little bit boring. It's like if you ever watch wrestling and they present these kind of good guys, some of whom are going to be a little boring, and that's why fans don't tend to kind of like them. So it's a little bit like that. They just haven't done enough, and the guy just doesn't really emote. His acting isn't brilliant. I think it's hampered a little bit by some kind of like a little bit of ADR that doesn't sound quite kind of natural and things like that. So I don't think he's terrible, but it's just kind of like, it's not leading man material. And he's too styled after John Wick, and he looks like Jon Snow, an Indian Jon Snow. So there's that. Then we have to talk about the pacing of the film. There's a lot of kind of sequences here that I just didn't feel were necessary. Like, we have the John Smith character checking into one hotel, then he's kind of going into another hotel, and just scenes where I just didn't think it was necessary. It's a lot of meandering around, and it just really feels like it's relatively kind of low energy. And then it is peppered through the movie with fight sequences, but they are relatively short. They're not exactly spectacular, and the kind of the big fight kind of end climax between our main character Jon Snow and Gary Daniels' kind of like main rival is a little bit kind of short-lived, shall we say. So it's a little bit kind of low energy, you know, so it's ultimately a film where I feel if you don't mind low budget action movies, it's a passable film. It's a little bit too similar to John Wick, I think, for some. It's clearly kind of, you know, trying to take what worked in that franchise and just transport it to their own movie, but it's a little bit too similar. They're not doing quite enough different, if you ask me. I think they also should have called it Find, Kill, Repeat, or something like that. Would have been a more interesting title than Repeater. It's not a terrible film, I have to say. I was still kind of somewhat engaged with it. I do think a lot of the reasons why it works are ultimately just copied straight from the John Wick franchise. But nonetheless, it still does work. You know, they've just transported it to this movie. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. It's not a bad film. I was tempted to give it a 5, but you know, I just think maybe our lead character just knocked it down a little bit because there's just not enough there for me. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen Repeater? Please do let me know what your thoughts are, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time.